President Barack Obama has finished his trip to Africa. One of the highlights was him addressing the African Union in Ethiopia, making him the first U.S. sitting president to do so. For a wrap of his visit, I'm joined in studio by Africa analyst Israel Mkhize. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, what has Obama's visit meant for the continent?
Well, Obama came to talk to two constituencies. The first constituency is the old established farther macro sector within the African continent and the diaspora, if you will. Those are your Robert Mugabe. Those are your Kenneth Kaunda. Those are the established people who have a certain understanding of the African question. And also, his arrival was also to speak to the new upcoming, emerging African mind, African intellect. That is why when I was speaking, you emphasized that, no, I'm talking, yes, to the realities that framed Africa around the colonial narrative and also the post-Cold War narrative that Africa was an extraction continent for the rest of the world, the West and so on. So, but now he's addressing the new upcoming mind, the new upcoming talent, the new upcoming political economy thinker to say, listen, you can reshape Africa into something that's different. So that's the first thing. Number two, Obama, I would call him the most, an African with an advanced access, leading the first world country in the West, such as America. He sits in the Situation Room there in the White House and he hears and he has got access into the advanced things. When you talk of security question, you talk of the economy, you talk of business, you talk of investment, he sits in the most advanced of all the nations of the world. So when he speaks into Africa, when he speaks against corruption, when he speaks against overstaying a welcome in power, when he speaks about constitutionalism and so on, he is speaking from a very, very deep experiential understanding of what is good governance, what is to be done, what are the ingredients for the making of a very powerful and progressive society, bloc or nation.
And he held no bars in terms of talking about leaders who hog on to power and talking about corruption, as you alluded to it. But how important is it that African leaders themselves hold each other accountable and rebuke each other if they see something wrong?
Well, he was not speaking in a vacuum, obviously. He was speaking to a lot of established doctrines, and you've got the African peer review mechanism, you've got the AU 2063 vision, you've got the NEPAD performance and review mechanisms.
How effective are those bodies?
Well, it's a good question. They recently in Sentin, there was an African Union summit, and they saw, most presidents and ministers were there, they saw themselves into new performance agreements, if you will, on operating within Africa. But one thing that's been a problem is, number one, the question of sovereignty politics and also zone and regional dependency. Now, on one hand, you've got the sovereign politics, like for instance, in South Africa, we've got our own politics. You go to Burundi, Burundians have been saying, listen, they went to the polls, they voted Nkurunziza, we've been complaining about him, we've been analyzing him. But now you also have, on the other hand, how that influence what's going on around the zone in Kenya and so on and so forth. So you have at zone and at block level, you've got this holding each other accountable. You've got SADC, you've got ECOWAS, and so on and so forth. But at country level, you still need to decentralize. That is why then, with these whole big summits and big pronouncements, those who are in the elite must always find a way of decentralizing these big messages down to the people on the street. Let's conscientize every African what is a peer review mechanism, because at the end of the day, people who cause problems are caused because of this wide gap between those who are leaders, who are different, who are distanced from us, who are followers, so to speak. So we're not catching up with these noble ideals.